In December of 1948, producer Eddie Small predicted the demise of traditional studios and their beltline style of production. He presciently declared that independent production would soon replace the studio system, and he put his money where his mouth was. In 1951, he helped finance the creation of a reconstituted United Artists, which became the model of the modern film studio, acting more as a partial financier and distributor, not a generator of original content. Small even predicted his partnership with John Payne when he said, back in '48, "The necessity today is for the talented picture makers, the creators, to become participants in the fruits of their own abilities. They must receive very little initial money, just honest salaries, but out of their own participation, they can make greater profits than ever before. This will revive the spirit needed to raise the quality of pictures." Although Payne's partnership with Small and director Phil Carlson didn't last long, the actor enjoyed a prolific run in the 1950s. But his career crashed in 1961 when he was hit by a car crossing Madison Avenue. Surgeons put him back together with screws and pins, and after 2 years of rehabilitation, he attempted a comeback. But the vigor was sapped, and the acting became sporadic until he faded away from the business entirely in the 1970s. Fortunately, the film noir revival of the past 20 years has put Payne back on the radar. He might one day be more recognized for 99 River Street than for Miracle on 34th Street. Now, before I get to the dames, I have to pay tribute to cinematographer Franz Planer, who never gets mentioned among top noir cameramen, although his work in the genre is exceptional. He was born in Bohemia, in what's now the Czech Republic, and like a lot of his contemporaries, he got his training at UFA Studios in Berlin before skipping out on the Reich to work in Britain. He moved to Hollywood in 1937, where his facility with moving the camera led to work with European expats like Robert Siodmak, Anatol Litvak, Fred Zinnemann, and Max Opels, for whom he shot the lustrous Letter from an Unknown Woman. Planer was Opel's favorite Hollywood cameraman. For Siodmak, he shot Crisscross, one of my favorite noir films and arguably the director's masterpiece. Phil Carlson may have chosen him for this picture because he'd done such a brilliant job on the boxing scenes in 1949's Champion. Now, for a few fun years, Evelyn Keyes and I were very good friends. I learned all about her amazing life when I profiled her in my book, Dark City Dames. Although she'll always be remembered as Scarlett O'Hara's younger sister, that's what she called her autobiography, she and I agreed that she gave her best performance in 1951's The Prowler. Now, that was a movie essentially made for her. This one, on the other hand, she never had any intention of making. By 1952, Evelyn had already moved to Europe, looking to leave Hollywood altogether. But she came back to tend to some business, and Eddie Small, who having been an agent could be very persuasive, convinced her to read the script. Of course, Evelyn loved the two showstopper scenes that directly revolve around her, and she signed right up.
You know how badly I want this role. Please don't put it on that basis. I don't care about the money. I'll work for anything you want to pay me. I'll work for nothing.
Scenes like these are an actor's dream. But also piquing her interest was another producer she met in Small's office that day, brash and blustery Mike Todd, who fell for her instantly. Now, Evelyn had already been through tempestuous relationships with directors Charles Vidor and John Huston, as well as affairs and trysts too numerous to mention. And although she claimed Mike Todd wasn't her type at all, they'd have a torrid affair during the making of 99 River Street, one that carried on through the next couple of years, until Todd fell even harder for Elizabeth Taylor. Don't feel bad for Evelyn. That woman knew how to bounce back. As Pauline, Peggy Castle does as much with the thankless role of a dissatisfied wife as any actress could.
Something new?
Costume jewelry. Rhinestones around a $10 movement.
They look almost good enough to be real.
They might be real if I hadn't married a pug.
She was 25 years old when she made this, more than 5 years into a Hollywood career that began with her being touted as one of 1950's baby stars, a group that included Piper Laurie, Barbara Bates, Mona Freeman, and the ill-fated Barbara Payton. On screen, at least, Peggy Castle was the most ill-fated of the bunch, since she died violently in almost every movie she made. So often the fate of the sexy other woman. Castle even took to calling herself the girl they love to kill. And it's almost comical how Phil Carlson constantly frames shots to exploit Castle's lush figure. After a couple of years in the business, she was totally used to this treatment. She's not long for 99 River Street, but when she's around, Castle dominates every scene she's in. She even makes Pauline a bit more than a one-dimensional bad girl. Yeah, she's a harridan to her husband, but she makes you feel the frustration of living with a guy who can't put his failures behind him. She not only makes you believe every word that comes out of her mouth, she makes you empathize with Pauline, at least a little bit. Now, if you disagree with that assessment, let me hear about it on the Noir Alley Facebook page and Twitter feed. Next week, John Garfield and Geraldine Fitzgerald star in a story written by W.R. Burnett, making his second appearance this season in Noir Alley. Make sure you're back here for Nobody Lives Forever. Until then.